Hey guys, what is up? So today we're diving into the first episode of Vanderpump Rules, season 11, episode 1. And it really starts off with Ariana. Oh wait, Ariana is so funny. They show her like the very beginning of the Vanderpump Rules theme song. Shocker. But of course, the first scene that they do show is Tom and Ariana's home. You see Ariana, she's trying to make a latte. Then it cuts to Sheena talking to her daughter and her husband. Then it cuts to James and Allie. They move into this new home. And I guess the big concern there is that it's over the airport. I mean, the only downfall, it seems, to living at the home is that they live next to the airport, so you can always hear the planes go past them. But other than that, they love the home. So then it cuts to Katie and Ariana talking. They discuss new teacups or thrifting teacups for their sandwich shop. And then there is a little bit of a discussion where Tom Sandoval is. He's currently in New Zealand filming that reality TV show, like the Special Forces. And so he's not home yet. But while Ariana and Katie are speaking, Ariana mentions that Tom did offer to buy her out of the house. And Ariana's like, well, why do I have to leave? You're the one who cheated. And like, where are you getting this money from? And to me, honestly, if she wants to move on, maybe just move at this point. I mean, it's not fair. I get it. It's a very lovely home. And as Rachel Leviss stated in her podcast, Rachel Goes Rogue, Tom and Ariana, when they got together, they were living in this apartment where, as you're warming up something in a microwave, a light would go out in the next room, So like, it's understandable that the two worked hard to get there regardless of who cheated on who. So I do understand that giving up the home could be a huge challenge or struggle. And then we start diving back into Allie and James Kennedy. So James starts diving into how he feels betrayed by Tom Sandoval. Like, you kissed Rachel or Raquel Leviss. That was my ex. I mean, James just talks about how he always feels like he's being mistreated by Sandoval. But honestly, as a viewer, I don't really care about James at all. I just, James is always, he's just, you have to question, did James really learn, grow, and evolve? Or was he now just put in a place of where he looks better? I don't think James has learned anything or grown at all. I don't trust James. James just has one of those faces that you can't trust. Like, I look at James and I'm like, am I buying what you're selling? Probably not. So I take every single thing that James says with a grain of salt. So then we start diving into Lala. Her mother is currently living with her. And Lala talks about the frustrations of the custody battle that she has with her ex. And I do feel for Lala because all she wants is control over her child's education and health. And Randall, her ex, just doesn't want the child to be on Vanderpump Rules. And she's like, that's a fair agreement. I just want say in my child's education and health. Hopefully the two are able to come to some type of agreement there. So now we get into Tom Schwarz. I mean, the first showing of him is him watering his plants. But then Tom Schwarz, he does go out to dinner with James. And Tom talks about the frustrations of being friends with Sandoval, how Schwartz says that the biggest fight, or one of the biggest fights him and Sandoval did have, was over the restaurant name. Like, he didn't want it to be called Tom Tom. But out of this dinner, I think the one takeaway from this is that Schwartz was pissed off and did not want to be in the middle of the whole Scandoval situation. But to what James said, James was like, he said something along the lines that, Schwartz, you're not you when you're with Sandoval. And I thought it was interesting coming from James because James is such a screw up to me. And so I was like, in order for James to see that, did he do some growing himself? But he's not the only person to say that. A lot of people have said since the whole Sandoval situation came out is that Schwartz is very dependent on Sandoval and vice versa. And that he's not the same person when he's with Tom Sandoval. I'm a huge believer in that everybody is responsible for their own actions and no one can force you to do anything you don't want to do. Tom Schwarz is a grown-ass man, so regardless of any influence Sandoval had over him, like he's old enough to make his own decisions. I mean, he got married and got a divorce. I mean, you're old enough to be a grown-ass man with your own opinions. So I'm not into this, oh, Sandoval made him keep the secret. I mean, I understand it wasn't fair to put Schwartz in the middle of all that. I understand that. However, I do think that Schwartz should take some responsibility or accountability. So now we dive into who Ariana is currently dating. Her boyfriend's name is Dan, and it is a long-distance relationship. Dan lives in New York, and you immediately get the vibe, not because they say it, but you get the vibe that a lot of the castmates are not really into Ariana dating Dan as like a long-term thing. I mean, you just get the vibe they both want Ariana to treat Dan as a rebound, nothing serious, because Scheana does state that Ariana has moved on too fast, but Scheana does state that she doesn't feel like Ariana has processed everything yet. Then Scheana, of course, talks about the scandal, which she got hugely criticized for, saying that no one was thinking about her in this process. Scheana was diagnosed with OCD 6 months back, I believe. And, you know, she was also diagnosed with depression. Sorry if you guys can hear that truck. There's literally nothing I could do about that. But anyways, Scheana was diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and, you know, the Sandoval situation did not help. She felt like Rachel took advantage of her. You know, she let Rachel sublet her home, and this is how Rachel repaid her. So there's a lot of emotions and frustrations there. Now we jump to Lala and her regretfulness on how she treated Rachel at the reunion. Lala goes, like, I understand what it feels like to be that other woman, you know, because she was to Randall. When she dated Randall, a lot of people were like, wait, he hasn't married you yet, Lala, wait, because Lala was engaged to Randall, but they're not married, they broke up, he's her ex. Her whole moral here is that she understands how Rachel's being treated, because she was being treated that way. So she wanted to give an open arm to Rachel. Now Lala is being criticized because she was the worst person out of the reunion that really came for Rachel. Like, it was really bad, right? And she even went on to say, even in TMZ interviews, I remember this, how Rachel isn't cut out for reality TV. But yeah, in episode 1, she was sending Rachel a voice note saying, hey, like, let's talk. I understand where you're coming from. So it was very weird vibes from Lala. And even Rachel in her podcast, Rachel Goes Rogue, she does state that she is more than open to having conversations with certain castmates of Vanderpump Rules, but once they leave that environment, because she feels like she doesn't know how true the friendships are if they're still filming for the show currently, but if they left that environment and they still want to hit her up, sure. And that's completely understandable. And another thing that Lala brings up too is that she mentions Dan, Ariana's boyfriend, and how she doesn't say it, but basically says that she feels like Dan is an opportunist. I feel like that's a fair judgment. Ariana states that she met Dan like 10 days after the Sandoval situation happened, and they just were kicking it since. So it is kind of strange that immediately as the situation happened with Tom Sandoval cheating on Ariana with Rachel Leviss, 10 days later, we hear that Ariana has a new boyfriend. Now, I don't know about you, because I do know that everybody grieves in their own way, but how healthy is it? And even Rachel Leviss says this on her podcast. How healthy is it for you to get back into a serious relationship after being in a relationship for so long? Because all that tells me is that regardless of who cheated on who, Ariana was also not happy in that relationship with Tom Sandoval. I think we should at least acknowledge that. I feel like if you're dating someone 10 days afterwards and you're not even calling it a rebound, you're calling it like an actual serious long distance relationship, well, then I think you had issues in your last relationship. I'm just saying. Hey guys, so I forgot real quick that there was a scene where Katie goes over to Schwartz's home, her ex-husband's home, because they do share dogs together. Something she also mentioned during BravoCon. And they have a small discussion about Ariana
disliking Schwarz, and Schwarz kind of like, how can I maneuver that? Should I talk to her? And Katie's just listening because it's very clear Katie's like, you know, I mean, her and Ariana have a sandwich shop together. So she's pretty much just listening, I guess, to Schwarz for the show, but it's pretty much you're on your own, you can figure it out type of ordeal. But I wanted to mention that because I thought it was interesting. You know, the two, they're cordial towards each other, and they share their dogs together. And it's funny to see the relationship, like two people who are divorced from each other, how they still have conversations. So that was kind of interesting to watch. Like, they still have this relationship. All right, anyways, back to the video.
So now we get to the incident where everyone is at Tom. Lisa Vanderpump is there, and there is this elephant in the room. It is Ariana and Tom Schwarz. So Ariana and Tom weren't the best when Ariana found out about the whole cheating and how Schwarz knew the whole time. In the beginning, Ariana expressed her hatred towards Schwarz through text, right? But then she says that she was eventually like going to forgive him. You know, she couldn't not talk to him forever. But what ended up happening was that Schwarz then went on to watch What Happens Live, and I guess was like, you know, if you see Sandoval, you know, he's been through a lot, just give him a hug. And Ariana wasn't a fan of that. So then she definitely texted him a lot of negative things and was calling him this, that, and the other. So they haven't really been friends since. So at this hangout at Tom with Lisa Vanderpump and everybody else there, the whole cast, Schwarz says hi to Ariana. Ariana gives him the cold shoulders. And that's that on that. Now, what also happens is that Lala pulls Lisa Vanderpump aside and is like, you know what? I really think I want to give Rachel Leviss a new chance. I really want to give Raquel. And I keep saying Raquel because Raquel Leviss changed her name back to Rachel, which is actually the name she was born with. Raquel is just the name she made up apparently when she was 10 years old. So I'm going to call her Rachel Leviss because that's her real name and that's what she prefers to be called by, her real name. So anyways, Lala, she's pulling Lisa Vanderpump aside and she's like, you know, I really felt like I was wrong at the reunion. I really felt like I was too rough on her. And I understand what Rachel's going through because I went through that. And Lisa Vanderpump, during her confessionals, she's like, it's really strange behavior coming from Lala because we all know she gave Rachel the most, you know, she gave it to her real badly at that reunion. So after that conversation with Vanderpump, Lala, she walks outside the restaurant and she leaves a voice note for Rachel saying, hey, you know, if you ever need anyone to talk to or just hit me up, you know, trying to reconcile. Before we get to the end where all the girls sit down, it's also important to mention that Katie and Scheana, they kind of resolve things. The two realize they don't hate each other. So long story short there, Katie was sharing to Scheana, you know, I really don't care who Schwarz dates, you know, or who he hooks up with. I hope he moves on, you know, that type of language, right? Katie didn't like the fact that the conversation that was shared with Scheana, you know, traveled all the way to Rachel or Schwarz, right? Which is really weird because it's a reality show, so you knew they were going to find out anyways. So I think that's part of the script or whatever, because that's kind of like, he was going to find out anyways. Rachel was going to find out anyways. But anyways, Scheana agrees that anything Katie says to her will stay with her. And now the two are great again. Now we hit the last scene where Lala has to share with Ariana that she reached out to Rachel, which I thought was really weird because that was basically the theme of the last scene of the restaurant, of all the girls getting together, was Lala having to share that information to Ariana because basically they all sit down, there's conversations about Tom Sandoval, how he would talk about Katie and tell Ariana to not be with Katie. I mean, they just bring up some negative things about Sandoval and his bad actions in the past, etc., right? But now we get to the juicy stuff. So first Lala tells Ariana, I don't think you like me. I think you just tolerate me, because Lala always shares that Ariana builds up this wall and she's never been able to break it. She's never been able to be in that crowd. You know, she's always been an outsider. And then Ariana's like, no, you know, we're friends. We're good, right? And then as soon as Ariana goes, oh yeah, we're friends. We're good, She goes, by the way, I also reached out to Rachel, and Ariana in her confessionals said, you know, had she reached out to Randall's ex, had she been in that same situation, Lala would go off on her. So she found it very interesting that Lala still wanted her to accept her and still be friends with her, even after wanting to reach out to Rachel, right? So Ariana kind of is just quiet about it, and everybody cheers at the end of the show.
Oh my gosh, one more thing. So towards the end of the show, Tom Sandoval comes back, and he's walking into the home that he shares with Ariana. And it's so crazy, like how the edits or the directors, the producers show everything, because you can still see that Tom and Ariana's photo, their painting, it's still on the wall of the home they share together. And he's like, is anybody home? As he's like walking up the steps, you know? So he still shares a home with Ariana. We do know that she like filed some type of lawsuit against him regarding this home. It's associated with the home. Look, I just saw the TMZ headlines and skipped because I'm kind of low-key over them. But anyways, I forgot to add that towards the end of the show, he's coming back from that special forces show that he filmed in New Zealand. And yeah, okay.
So I thought that was interesting because I still think there's more to come, because we do see that trailer where Lala goes like something along the lines of, you know, this girl gets cheated on and she's like God, you know, something along those lines, right? I feel like Lala is going to be super envious of Ariana because when Lala got cheated on, no one cared. Like there was no, oh my gosh, you know, Lala, how are you doing? Like no one cared. But here is why no one cared. And I think Lala knows this because she did admit that she was the other girl. Remember that reunion when Lala was like, my man does this for me, my man does this. I drove up in this car, my man. This is what my man does for me. And even remember when Lisa Vanderpump goes, how you met him is how he'll leave you. When meeting Randall, all Lala ever talked about was his money, was his assets, what he gave her financially. And I never once heard Lala say, I love Randall. There was that one reunion, I'll try to find it, but Lala was just going in on how much Randall spends money on her. And the whole time I was like, not once did I hear this chick say that she loves the man, right? At least people like me, it's not necessarily throwing out the sympathy cards or the tears. It's because I remember the beginning of what that relationship was like. The relationship wasn't built on love. It was built on what my man can buy me and what I can give to him. So that's why people don't feel sorry for Lala. So those are my thoughts, y'all. What did you guys think about this first episode? I wanted to get this out right before the second episode comes because I am running behind. I am still going to be covering Rachel Goes Rogue, all of her chapters. I just got to get through this exam this week, and then we are back with covering everything. So I'm going to be pushing out videos as soon as I'm done with this exam this week. I'm going to be pushing out videos on Rachel Goes Rogue, her chapter like 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is now. And then I'm also going to be covering every single episode of Vanderpump Rules season 11. So thank you guys for tuning in and watching. Let me know your opinions, what you think of the first episode, and I will see you again on the next video. Bye guys.